Hey guys, Trev here from SpineWise. Today I want to talk to you about reducing your cardiovascular risk profile. So if you have had blood tests done for your cardiovascular system, so cholesterol tests, glucose tests, these type of things, maybe you've had an ECG done recently, whatever it is, I want to talk about labs and how we can potentially start changing these things around in terms of heading forward. Of course, none of this stuff really replaces a proper assessment, so please get yourself properly checked, because I'm going to give you some broad information. I'm going to oversimplify things down a little bit to make it a bit easier for you to understand, but this is the ways that you can hack your own blood tests and try and reverse them around, which we do every single day. Like always guys, if you love the videos, please share, like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. All these things make it easier for us to get information out for you and make it seem like it's worthwhile, and we can help more people in more different ways. All right, let's get to it. So recently we spoke about the different things that you need on our lab test. What you should really look for in labs that will provide all the information for you to get well established as to what your cardiovascular risk profile is. So the big ones we really want to look at: fibrinogen. Fibrinogen tells you a little bit about how thick the blood is. I know it's a bit oversimplified, but it tells you a little bit about that. There's some inflammatory markers we can add to that as well, but we're going to keep it simple for now. Lipofraction tests. So lipofraction tests are an LDL test. LDL. Okay, and I've done previous videos on lipofraction, but LDL is basically your so-called bad cholesterol, but there's actually 7 different types of bad cholesterol, not just LDL. So a lipofraction test will tell you exactly what the breakdown of all that is. So whether or not your high LDL is actually a problem for you or not. Then we have our HDLs. So HDLs are our so-called good cholesterol. Triglycerides. Triglycerides are they're the result of fat storage. So it's insulin converting carbohydrate that you consume into fat for storage, and this produces triglyceride. And triglyceride really is a potential risk factor for cardiovascular disease heading forward. Homocysteine. Homocysteine is known to cause damage to the artery. It's a link to aneurysms and things like that. It's also associated with liver dysfunction. Vitamin D. So vitamin D sounds really weird, but vitamin D is actually a cholesterol-derived product. You don't get vitamin D from the sun. You can't produce a biochemical substance from light, not with the technology we have these days, inside the human body at least. So vitamin D is actually due to the conversion of cholesterol in the skin and then in the liver. So this is all about liver function as well, which ties in with most of this stuff, and then our fasting glucose, which again comes into it. So when we look through these things, this is really about inflammation and our essential fatty acids, our good healthy fats. Lipofraction tests, your HDLs, your homocysteine levels and your vitamin D levels are all directly a part of liver function. And then your triglyceride levels and your fasting glucose levels are all about insulin function. So these are the things that we really need to, the areas we really need to address. So how do we go about normalizing them? So let's say we've come back with an elevated fibrinogen. It's not a very common test, but it's a nice one to do. One of the best ways that we can bring fibrinogen down is our omega-9s. So things like olive oil have been shown to do fantastic things at fibrinogen, even reduce it down as much as 20%. So olive oil is a great way to bring it down. Good quality fats. We can even include with that some flaxseed oil and things like that. Works really, 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 really well. Okay, we're going to go all the way down now. We're going to miss these ones and we're going to go straight down to fasting glucose. Because when we start talking about all of these things through here, we're all really talking about liver function, and one of the biggest, most detrimental causes of changes to liver function really is insulin resistance. And one of the big reasons for that is that there's a very unique situation that exists between your pancreas and your liver. They kind of communicate together, and the real unique thing about it is it's pretty much the only area of the body where one organ dumps its hormonal waste into another organ. So we get a little bit of that in terms of trying to get secretion into the gut, but basically the pancreas secretes all its hormonal endocrine substances into the bloodstream, which then go directly into liver function and influence it. And the biggest influence of that is a hormone called insulin. And the reason why that occurs is because the pancreas and the liver together function very closely to regulate glucose. So these two here, triglyceride and our fasting glucose are direct results of insulin resistance. So when it comes to triglycerides, personally, I like seeing triglyceride numbers under 1.0, so in the less than 1 for most people. There are exceptional circumstances with that, but for most people I prefer to see them under 1, and I really like to see fasting glucose somewhere in the order of about 4.8 to 5.1. Okay, so they're the common areas that I really want to see those two. Both these two you can change quite easily around. To get these two under control, we need to get our stress levels right, so we need to get our cortisol levels under control, and we also need to get our carbohydrate intake down and our fat intake up. So we want to go more towards a keto style diet or a low carb, high fat diet in order to get insulin resistance under control. And this will start bringing down our triglyceride levels and start bringing down our fasting glucose levels. If we're seeing triglycerides up with cholesterol up, so with our LDLs up, this is red flag for insulin resistance. Okay, get your cholesterol levels under control and all that will come down by itself. And this is what we see with our liposuction. When we're getting small particles, which are our dangerous ones, when we're getting our small particles elevated, again, we want to be looking towards insulin resistance. So we need to make sure that we're breaking them down and really getting the carbohydrate levels down to sort that out. So we really want to look at our lower carbohydrate based diets, more towards our Mediterranean high fat style diets, rather than the standard Western style diet containing about 60 to 70% carbohydrate within it. The other thing that we often see with LDLs, if we're getting LDL changes in the absence of triglyceride problems, this can sometimes be associated with thyroid function, sometimes with vitamin A functions as well, and these are things that would need to be properly tested before we went down that path, especially vitamin A, considering that we know that it's so easy for vitamin A to cause problems with people. So they're things you want to get tested. Low HDLs, ideally, personally I'd love to see HDLs over about 1.8, preferably over 2 is even better. But to get HDLs up, again, we want our good oils. Olive oil, flaxseed oil, these are the type of oils we want to use. Really get these oils up, and these will help us get our HDLs up, our polyunsaturated fats. They're the things we're looking at. Homocysteine. Generally we love seeing this between about 7 to 9. The 7 to 9 area seems to be the area that most people cope really well. Homocysteine is actually part of the system known as methylation. I've done a whole lot of videos on methylation in the past. You can go back through our archives on YouTube and Facebook and you can see those videos. There's a whole lot of other things that are associated with high homocysteine, so mental health disorders, learning disorders, concentration problems, a whole ton of different things you can find with homocysteine, not just cardiovascular issues, even things such as detoxification problems are all associated with potential homocysteine issues as well. So the easiest way we want to get this up, we want to improve methylation, which is the process. You can have a look through our old videos that do a whole lot of stuff previously about methylation. That's the one that we get from there. Vitamin D. So vitamin D is another one that comes through there. So what we're really talking about in this is our lab-based D, which is 25-OHD. So 25-OHD is actually produced in the liver. So it's first metabolized in the skin, which then gets converted in the liver to vitamin D that we use on our labs, which is 25-OHD. Really, when we're looking at labs for vitamin D, we want to be seeing this somewhere in the order of about 60 to 85. They're the numbers that I like to see. If we're in winter or heading into winter, ideally in the 70s to 80s is really where we want to be. If we're at the end of summer, then into the high 80s. We can kind of midsummer, we can handle 60s at the end of winter. So in other words, what we want to do is we want to have a nice storage up before we get into winter, and then it can kind of just plateau down a little bit. In Melbourne here, we are roughly about 37 degrees south. So once we hit July, August, we don't produce vitamin D. The sun just doesn't get up high enough in the sky for us to get that wavelength to do that. And I've spoken about that in some videos in the past that you can have a look through. So we want to have a nice storage form of it before we get into winter. If we're in our 50s come winter, we're going to be in problems with that. So we want to get those levels up. So there's a couple of different ways we can do that. Vitamin D3 supplementation is the most common way. But what we now know is that there's a form of vitamin D which actually supplies 25-OHD, which is a water-soluble based vitamin D. We use a product here which does it. We've only just started using it. It's only just been made available recently. Works tremendously well. Normally what we could get done in about 4 months with standard vitamin D, we can get levels up now in about 6 weeks with the same type, just using, via the same number, just by using a slightly different form of vitamin D. Works amazingly well. The other one which I haven't got up there is our oxidized LDL, our oxidized bad cholesterol. And for this, we really want to get rid of free radicals and start producing better antioxidants, which really, again, is all about getting liver function up, getting glutathione counts up, things like that. And that's all about regulating homocysteine as well. Alright guys, so there's a quick way that you can hack into your own labs and start changing lab tests around. Of course, there's a lot of different things that overlap all this stuff as well in terms of exercise patterns, sleep patterns, etc. So this is just a brief introduction. Every case has very specific patterns to it, and every specific pattern has specific treatments to it. So if you have a question and you're not sure about your own labs, please send them through to me. I'm happy to have a look through them too and discuss potential things that you can look at in terms of a natural approach to dealing with your cardiovascular risk factors. Anyway guys, if you have any other questions, please post them up, send them through to me. Thanks for watching. Again, it's always great to see so many people are watching, and I'll catch up in the next vid. Bye for now.